I just love y'all so much. Y'all are a mess. But welcome back to the Book Chapter and Converse podcast, where I am your host, accompanied by the amazing other hosts, such as Mr. Ford.
What's up?
Not much, not much. And then we have the amazing, the wonderful, the oh so loving Miss Carter.
Ooh, such a warm welcome. Thank you, love. Hi, everybody.
Daylene. We love Daylene.
Yes, we do love Sister Daylene. And then we have, of course, Nathan and me, Angelina McClinton. And today, it's gonna be good, y'all. I'm telling you, this is gonna be real good because today we have a wonderful show set up for you. And y'all, in this particular chapter, like the very first part got me because I didn't even think about how he puts it together and when he talked about the different love songs and how most love songs fall into the category of gaining a love or a love gone bad. Did y'all know that? Or was it just me not really paying attention to stuff we were singing?
I mean,
Well, guess that is kind of true. It's either about the love you gain and the love you lost. Either
yeah.
people are singing happily about love or they're singing sad about it. So, yeah.
I mean, such as okay, so the song Pretty Wings. What category does that fall in?
Moving on.
I think it's moving on.
Let love set you free to. I mean, think about it. What category does it fall in?
Moving
Oh,
on.
goodbye. We're moving on. Have a good one. Be
Moving
free.
on. Goodbye. So why do we be playing that at weddings and stuff?
People be saying that they weddings and things, don't they?
They do.
That's the song the bride be coming out on. You are doomed before you even start.
Yeah, I've never heard that away.
That is a move on song, but then you have one of the classics by one of the greatest artists. You're my lady. What does that fall into?
D'Angelo. Oh.
The greatest song.
It's probably about drugs.
Oh,
No, that's brown. That's brown sugar.
That's brown sugar. Technically, being a D'Angelo fan.
Hey, he could have been talking about that too.
That is a love.
Well, give me the lyrics. I don't know all the lyrics. I mean, that's probably about all I know was the chord.
It's a love game. Okay.
Yeah,
right. That is about
her.
Yeah, I mean, that one wasn't too hard, but okay, one that they be playing all the time, and it was also a classic too. If I should stay, what's that?
I mean, if you saw the movie, you know that's a goodbye.
Right.
She's on the plane, she's taking off, he's standing there watching. That's a goodbye. I'll always love you, but I got to go.
And people still be singing that one to let somebody know that I love you, but I'm actually telling you bye. But they be singing it to people that you ain't even leaving.
That was a little different.
And I hope you have all you dreamed of. Come on here.
That was a little different.
People I wish you joy and happiness.
Yeah, that was a little different in description and why people
they played that at your wedding, Ms. Carter?
Say that again.
Did they play that at your wedding?
No, sir, we did not.
What they play?
Mine was At Last.
Come
Like
on,
our
Mother
song
Day.
is.
Carter, what year did you get
Don't make me
married?
try and sing it.
What year did you get married?
82.
Um, 2002.
Oh, 2002. I knew it was a two.
Oh, so you weren't
2000.
too long. You're not too far behind me.
I was married
You're only about a
July
couple years ahead of me.
6, 2002.
I'm October 23rd, 2004.
Oh, October. What a wonderful month. It's
It
right
was
there
nice
near
and
my
cool
birthday.
at that time. Now October is hot as Hades. Back then it was nice and
Y'all a
cool.
mess. But in thinking about these songs right here, one of the things that he pointed out with our songs where it's talking about losing a love, it's either one of don't leave me or I'm out the door
Pause.
for, different reasons.
Did we say the chapter and the title?
Chapter chapter 8, Grieve and Let It Go.
Okay. I was just trying to see.
Yes, I said it. Chapter 8,
Let it
Grieve and Let It Go.
go.
Our episode and our chapters match. So if you see episode
For
8,
the most part.
chapter 8, for the most part.
For the most part. But one thing that what it really made me look at was the fact that we have to accept the fact that there are going to be times when we have these relationships, and again, regardless of what type of relationship it is, and it says when something goes wrong in a relationship, it feels bad and you want the problem to end. But what I don't really think we actually think about is the fact that it may mean that with the problem ending, the relationship also ends. Because I think we work really hard to like keep these relationships. Because if we go back and look at what we talked about in chapter 6, and even looking at 7, where it requires us to go back and look back and connect the dots to see where we went wrong, and we talked about that last episode. We tend to stay in situations because we want the problem to end, but we don't necessarily want the relationship in and of itself to end. And I think that is where we struggle with the grief and actually moving on and letting it go. What do you guys think?
I think that's why grief is important, or the grieving process is important, because sometimes the problem is the relationship, and we don't see that in the moment. Um, because again, you talk, nobody wants to be alone. But of course, when things do come to an end, as they sometimes often do, um, what many of us tend to do is we start searching for that next connection. We don't take the time to actually go through the grieving process that that we're going to talk about here in a second, because we're just ready for, oh, we broke up, now I'm ready, I'm moving on to the next, because we see that all the time when people break up, even with songs like Ariana Grande, thank you next, or we it's there's no time to really do what we talked about in 6 and 7, which is examine, reflect. It's all about, oh, okay, girl, it's over. Just move on to the next man. Okay, boy, it's over. Just get on up. And we heard that we were growing up. Women and men are like buses. It's the next one coming. Just wait for the next one. Just wait for the next one. Well, there's some things that I need to do before I actually jump on this next bus, so that when I do get on this bus, I'm not carrying this baggage from this last situation with me to put me back here again, where I'm looking for the next connection.
Right.
True.
That's where we get our bag lady.
Exactly.
You gon' hurt your back. Yeah, I agree.
But
And
he
we
said,
have to actually go through the process. And so in this episode, we're going to look at the process, because at some point you do have to move on, and that's what he does talk about in the very beginning. And I know that oftentimes we tie in grief, and I think we did mention this before, but we tie in grief with just death. But a life necessarily isn't the only thing um, that dies. You can obviously lose a loved one, but losing a relationship is a grief. Losing out on a job that you thought you were going to get, or one that you had planned on keeping, and they let you go quicker than what you thought.
They let me
That's
close.
grief.
They let me go.
You know, we be wanting to walk out how we want to walk out.
I
So
want to
to
live on my
be
own
told,
terms.
I don't know why you brought that up, Angela.
Listen, because when I
You know,
read this
look,
chapter, I had to
see,
come to the realization that I was still pissed off
come
about
on.
this job thing. And I had to really look at, because for y'all don't know, I was teaching, but they didn't renew my contract this coming year, and it wasn't because I was a bad teacher. Let me first say that there was a relationship issue between me and the principal, but that's neither here nor there. But I had to come to realization I was still pissed, and especially because for whatever reason I'm still connected to the email. So I'm still getting the email. So all the emails are rolling in for let's get together, meet at the campus. And I'm looking like this. Why are y'all sending me this junk? Because first of all, I'm not coming, I'm not employed. Um, and I'm not coming back. And I just, if I can just be honest, I want to shake the lady. Hey, I just want to, but anger is part of that process. It's all right because I'm like, okay, I'm angry. I'm not gonna sin, but I did have to realize that I was still a little upset because, like you said, I wanted to leave on my own terms. When that time came, it's oh my goodness, it's one thing when I think a lot of us want to end things on our own terms, but it's something when somebody close that door before we ready to close it.
Do you hear me?
That is when we really get mad. Oh, you can't leave me. I'm gonna leave. No, I'm leaving you. Well, no, I already left you, baby. So you can't leave. I left you first. You know. And before you jump into it, this is one of the things he was saying. Grief is what enables you to fully let it go. It frees you. It clears your mind, and it helps heal the injuries. You must grieve what was, and like you were saying, Angie, it's not just about death as far as a person like your grandmother or your grandfather, or mother or father. Talking about dissolution of marriage, a partnership, maybe a business partnership,
they say
uh,
divorce feels worse
the
than death.
divorce. Because you lost a whole person. Yeah, they're still alive. Some of y'all probably wish they
And
were
that's
dead.
the thing. You lost that person and they're still alive.
You probably wish they were dead. But they're still alive and they're walking around. And depending upon how that divorce came into play, uh, that's tough. And a lot of people just pick up and think they're gonna move on without grieving. But what you're going to do is you're going to take that same mess into the next relationship, and you're going to bleed on your other partner.
Because I didn't even think about the fact that when he mentioned uh, for somebody who was an addict and they fall back taking the drugs or drinking all over again, the fact that you lost your progress, and
Mm-hmm.
so you have to actually
Mm-hmm.
grieve. I was doing so well, and something triggered me, and so I went backwards. But not only do I have to figure out what triggered me and things like that, but accept the fact that I'm starting over again. I'm not where I was. I'm not, on the same path. And I was like, wow, there's so many different things that we actually
Mm-hmm.
have to look at as it's a loss. And the loss really bothered me. And I think we have to one acknowledge the fact that you are hurt. And now I'm going to have to go through the process of hurting because I don't know if it was a post or something, but somebody was like, don't spend time thinking about the hurt. What do you mean? Like you actually have to acknowledge the fact that I I'm hurt right now. And then process the fact that you are hurt. Maybe not sit in it forever, but we can't tell people to move on from that. No, give them a moment to process it. And it's different for everybody. And I think depending on what it is, the wound might be, much deeper. But one thing that the
Oh, this
book
is
says is
crazy.
that without grief, the wound never becomes a memory.
Right.
And
It
the
says it
goal for
converts
it
a
is to
wound into a memory.
actually becomes something that, yeah, I remember it, but it's not what drives my life. And a lot of us,
Right.
because we haven't processed it, we're still operating out of unprocessed grief. So
Correct.
we
Well,
want
it
to,
says the grief is what converts a wound into a memory.
right.
You know, let it be.
So it can't become that until you actually go through
Grief.
the process of grieving.
Go to Grieve.
Got
And of
to.
course, the only reason we do grieve is because we're emotionally attached. You know, because it
Correct.
says anything that we're emotionally attached to. What are you saying? Acknowledging the attachment.
That's part one.
We get attached to
There's one of
people.
those.
That's the draw. And without emotional attachment, there's nothing to grieve. Hence, some of those people who are able to just pick up and be out because there is no true emotional attachment. And thus, you have somebody over here grieving, and the other person is like, beep, beep, on the bus, moving
But do you think
on.
that is that there's no emotional attachment, or is that just kind of what society has taught us? Just pick up and move on without
No, some
necessarily
people
acknowledging
don't have it.
how you feel.
Some people don't have it. Normal people, they have it regardless. They've got it because, like you say, society's taught us that. Emotional
Healthy people.
health. Thank you. You're right. It is the unhealthy who have look in the eyes. You don't see nothing. You know, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
you know,
Because I
and
think sometimes there's a block there, and it's probably due to some form of trauma that they've experienced where they will at least convince themselves, I don't
I'm
feel
okay.
this. And it's possible that maybe you weren't able to feel something at one point. So you've become numb to certain things. And it's not that you don't feel it, but you've conditioned yourself due to maybe some what do you call them, defense mechanisms, coping mechanisms. I don't, I feel like I don't feel this. And so I think some of those are the people who can, pick up and move on. It's not that they're okay with it, but there's an unhealthy way of handling things.
Yeah.
And
They don't have attachment, but they have feelings, but they can't attach themselves to the feeling
mm,
because of whatever the blockage is. It wouldn't let them do it, and their body has taught them that, and it becomes a survival mechanism.
right,
Not so much defense, but they've learned to live by not attaching themselves to something, probably because of a traumatic event. Because
hmm,
to attach
Wow.
themselves to it, they actually have to sit in what happened, and
mm,
then they don't know where that's going to lead them. So, especially if you're young, you don't have those resources. So you say, "I better just forget about this and move on," or they could be in a funk or in a mental institution, or whatever the case may be. So they have the feeling,
Wow.
but they've detached from feeling it. So they know it's there, but they've detached from feeling it. So they don't have to ever actually go through the grieving process and then sit in the reality of what actually just happened.
so if you're one of those
So
people
that's
who say, I just moved on from it, I left that behind and kept it moving.
yeah. They
Uh,
left it behind, but if you ever bring it up in front of them and make them confront it, it could be a nice that could be an explosion. But my question
right.
is to Ford, how do you so with your job situation, how do you go from beyond boundaries? Because I'm sure going into your next situation, you're gonna have some type of boundary up, maybe looking for signs of the person who just fired you. You see what I'm saying? Like, how do you
Mhm.
walk into a new job, have it beyond boundaries, and actually being free in that institution that you're going to next?
Well,
Because you said
well,
you
I
wanted to
mean,
shake her. How do you
I
not
did.
carry? And I'm not saying that that's wrong or right or wrong. I'm saying even after you realize, okay, I want to shake her, and you don't do it, and you get through it, when they hire you at your next school or wherever you're going, you can't help but look over your shoulder. How do you say like, okay, the last person did this, and I don't want to, I don't want to go down that road again? if this book is to move us beyond boundaries, it's supposed to put us in a state of loving freely and fully. You
Right.
know, not saying that we don't set boundaries, but we're not like you can set the boundary, then know when to, okay, I can open this right here. You see what I'm saying? So how do you
Right.
go into your next job saying the last thing that was out of order was wrong, but I'm not gonna be bound to that experience? Or is that, are you
Um,
not there yet?
I I mean, I'm not going to necessarily say I'm not there. Um, I think that, of course, my antennas are probably going to be up when I first get there.
Right. Yeah, 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 for sure.
Um, because because in this particular situation, it was more of a one thing in your face, another thing behind you, one thing
Mm-hmm.
here, another thing there. But of course, I would always somehow find out what was being said behind me without me seeking it out. I mean, I would try to go to work, do my job, and go home. That's just who I was. I teach my kids, I take care of my kids, and I go home. But things would come back, and I would always, even in that situation, I would just always try to let my fruit speak. I don't care what you're saying about me. I'm going to allow my work ethic and my fruit to speak for me, because people are going to talk about you all the time. And
Right.
that's just the nature of this life. So you let your fruit speak, you let your work speak. And so my mentality going into this next job is going to be the same thing. Because I can't pull that into this next place, although my antennas are probably still going to be up until I probably feel that level of comfortability where I can be like, okay, this is not going to be like the next situation. But at the end of the day, y'all know me, I'm gonna be me, regardless of wherever I go and what I do. That's I can't be anything but me. And if you don't like me, you can't take me. I think I've finally reached a point in my life where it's not my problem. I don't think I've ever encountered people where I don't try to make them feel important, where I don't try to make them feel seen and feel welcome, even in those spaces when I know that you're saying things about me that aren't true. I would never disrespect her or do anything like that, any of that, because at the end of the day, you were my leader. Regardless of how you felt about me, I was still going to come in here and do the job that I was hired to do. And so moving forward, that's the same mentality that I'm taking into this next place. You hire me to do a job, I'm going to do the job. I'm going to continue to be me. Um, and if you don't like me, hey, then it's time to move on. We'll grieve again, and we'll love again, or we'll work again. So that's a very good question. Definitely, like I said, antennas are going to be up, but I'm going to go into the space, and I'm going to be myself, and just let the chips fall where they may. I'm hoping and praying that that whatever door is open, that this is a door that He wants for me, and if it's not, don't let me walk in the door. And if we dealing with the same thing, then don't even open the door. I don't want to interview. I don't want none of that, because some of the problems that we encountered on this last job were things that we discussed in the interview. And or should I say, well, let me say this: the big issue was this.
Oh, your hair.
This was the biggest issue right here.
Wow.
And because I refused to conform to this mold that they wanted me to that they wanted me to be in.
Was this
Uh,
before they passed
Hmm.
the law, or
yeah, it was yeah,
And this
so you a couple of months early and you would have
yeah.
had a job by law?
And I say that because now someone's gonna write and say where, because when after I got the non-renewal email, when I went back to the campus to turn in my things, she had my assistant principal write me up about a conversation that we had about my hair in April. And I was like, why is this necessary? I'm already not coming back. What's the point of the write up?
Right.
Because I've already non renewed my contract.
Hmm.
And I was like, you're trying
Because
to
she
cover
needed it.
yourself.
Yeah,
I
she
Yeah.
said,
needed
you're
that.
trying to cover yourself. I said, and that's fine. And I wanted to go in there. Now, that particular day, she wasn't on campus. I guess she knew I was coming. Because I would have gone to her office at that point and been like, really? Because you knew that this is what you were going to do towards the end of the year, you could have had a conversation with me about that. But we grieve it. It was loss. I mean, I know y'all like, really? Y'all have to know the full story about how I had to get this job to understand where I'm coming from. But yeah, it was tough because I had to jump through some hoops for this particular position. And I was like, I don't want to do that again. I don't have to go down that road again. I was hoping to be there at least another year or two before I decided what I wanted to be able to do. But it was made for me. And now I understand why. I can see a little bit better why.
It'll come for you.
Ford.
What?
She's
Nothing.
grieving. She's grieving. She's grieving your loss right now.
Definitely grieving.
She's grieving.
Definitely
But,
grieving.
You know, as her friend, she was like, I didn't know we would go through all that, and now she's grieving in this moment for you. Even sometimes, people do that. We're gonna grieve together over these losses. She's grieving.
It's crazy because the woman had never seen me teach, had never come into my classroom to observe me.
Wow.
What an amazing principal.
Didn't know if I could teach my way out of a paper bag, but because what I was told was I didn't fit the culture.
She didn't want to see Jesus. Were you looking like Jesus, too much like Jesus for her?
I think she wanted me to do, cut it off and become the culture. But I was like, we have so many young boys on our campus that wear dreads and they're nappy, they're unkempt, they don't look well. I was like, at the very least, I could be an example. I could be an example because they want to do it. They're going to do it. So why not have an example for them to say, you know what, Mr. Ford, who do your hair? Where you going? What I need to do so I can get mine looking right, looking nice. But it's okay because the next place I go, this won't be an issue.
Like that discrimination.
We got too many. We got bigger fish to fry in education. We're trying to worry about somebody's hair and whether or not their shirts are tucked in and all that kind of stuff. You got teachers leaving. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about grief and let it go. And number 2 says, accept that you can't control the loss. I've accepted that.
Do you know how many teachers walked away from education? They did the numbers. It was like 50. What?
It's a lot of principals grieving
$50,000. Yes, because they didn't change schools. They left the profession. This past summer, when school got out, across the U.S., the loss was massive of teachers who left the profession. And, and that's some of the people who been wanting to be a teacher all their life. Those who have been called to do it and feel like they just can't even stay it anymore. Those people had a loss to grieve, and the schools that are trying to replace people grieve.
Hello.
Because it's a lot, and there's hardly anyone to fill these vacancies. It's real.
So Ford, you said that you've accepted that you can't control the loss, and that is one of the steps, because we did say that there are components for grieving a loss. Now, this one does really talk about grieving the loss of a relationship versus, just a job. However, you do have to acknowledge the attachment, and you say that you've accepted that you can't control the loss. Would you say that you're right there, or have you moved? Do you feel like you are beyond that part, or are you right there at I accept that I can't control the loss and I'm still trying to work
beyond
through
that part? No, I think I'm beyond that part because you made your decision, and that's fine whether I agree with it or not. And I know we're talking about the situation with the job, but same thing with any relationship. If Nathan and I decide that he don't want to be my friend anymore, I can't control that. I can't control him. All I can do is, look at it and go, okay. Try to and I think I can say this. I can't remember if it was mentioned in this chapter. You don't have to have closure to start grieving. because sometimes you won't get that. You know, if he just, I mean, if he wakes up and says, "Ford, I want to be friends with you tomorrow," I could ask why all day, and he may never give me an explanation. And I can't allow that to be like, well, I can't move on if he don't tell me why, what I did, and no, 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 and you be stuck forever. So you know, I knew that even though in this case I did send an email to HR and I asked why. I was like, you know, my star scores were good, and I had an email at the time. I hadn't had any write ups because I hadn't had any issues with students, any issues with teachers. I was like, well, why? Well, nobody responded. And so at that point, I was like, you know, okay, that's kind of typical. I'm not going to allow their non-response to cage me and be like, well, I can't move on to my next job because I just need closure. Man, these bills, I'd be foreclosed on if I did that because I still got a mortgage. I still got bills to be paid. So, you know, this whole idea of, and sometimes we think that we have to have closure because sometimes closure won't come. The person may walk out of your life and leave you a letter and change their number, or just walk out your life and change their number and you can't get in touch with them, or they may not respond to your emails or your requests. But that second part of grief is where you have to accept what you cannot control. You don't have control over that. I think, what is that serenity prayer? Lord, help me to, you know, control the things I can't, wisdom to know the difference, et cetera, et cetera. So I know I can't control this. You made a decision. That's your decision. The human side of me, the fleshly side of me, would love to wish you ill will. I would love to say, I hope the semester bombs and it blows up in your face. But I can't say that because the kids are on the campus, and I still care a lot about those kids. So I want them to have a successful school year because of the kids, in spite of you, but because of them, because they deserve better. So no, I'm moving through that process because at the time, like I said, when I was reading this chapter, I didn't even think about grieving a loss of a job. We always think about when we lose a person. Um, but as I was reading, I was like, Lord, I'm mad. I'm a little upset, and I think I want to slap somebody. I'm
I
be
mean,
real.
I'm sitting there because I saw it in with myself because I mean, obviously you grow older and you don't keep the same people. I mean, it's hard for like children to understand that the people that you start out with, you may not have them at 20, 30 or whatever because you know you're going through different seasons. And I don't have the same friends that I had, you know, in my 20s. And I felt you when you said like you don't always get closure because I thought, you know, that I would be friends and connected with people for a long time. And sometimes you don't even know why something just kind of, you know, dissolved or people do just change on you and you have to just look up, oh, you acting new, you know, and then you either have to decide like, are you going to address the matter or, you know, do you move on? And
Right.
so one of the things that I also think that because the fifth step is allow yourself to feel that sadness. And sometimes we don't want to feel the sadness of it because, you know, it actually hurts. And I remember in the loss of one of my friends, even though I was kind of upset, I looked back over the good parts and I was sad because we were really close. You know, we did a lot of things together and look up, we're no longer, you know, close anymore. But I did have to look at the fact that I I still have friends, but this is just one, you know, that just didn't make it to the next season of my life. But it took
Yeah,
me a
because
minute to move past it because I don't think I wanted to accept that what we had envisioned it's not gonna be there anymore.
Right. Nate, you look
And
like
that
you
was
got
it.
something to say.
You see the wheels turning.
Yeah, I see the wheels
Nah,
turning. The prayer we're turning. Oh, a little fire
nah, I'm
burning.
adjusting my back over here.
Oh my gosh. Let
That's
me
all
tell
I'm
you
doing.
before
My
Nate
leg is
say
so
he's
my leg is asleep, and I'm adjusting my back, and so I'm just
Oh
shifting,
God.
just trying to keep it together. And
trying.
you know, y'all got the going on the what the when the teachers leaving the school districts, and then my back was like, yeah, you don't know nothing about that shift, so I just started shifting. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. But no, no, no. In all seriousness, I think a part of grief is just uh, it's making you in his book, The Steps. It's making you see it in its fullness. So I think we can try to compartmentalize the situation and say, "Oh, that just happened to me." You know,
Right.
they just left, or my house just burned, or whatever it is. You know, this person just died, and it makes you see everything, um, so you can move forward with clarity.
Right.
I always say, I think some people they move on, they don't move forward, and so because you can move on and just wander about, uh, the sun will keep shining.
Right.
And I battle depression, so I know like them days they just go by. The birds gonna start chirping. You know, everything is gonna keep going. And if you don't have clarity, you don't realize that hey, the world didn't stop; it kept going. You know, so I think grieving helps you understand it in its fullness, so you can move forward as you go on. You know, and so I think even to what you were saying, you know, I've been in your shoes before too. It takes a lot of processing to really understand like okay what just happened on the job or what just happened. I lost friends before, so some they give the explanation. Sometimes both of y'all know what it is and you just didn't have a conversation. I learned to
Mm,
categorize it. There are spiritual friends that deserve spiritual explanations, and then there are just people that we've encountered that we don't have that bond with. So if you're a spiritual friend to me, I'm going to try to do what Jesus said and see if we can keep our unity. But
right.
even if we can't, um, if I've wronged you, I'm going to repent. Hopefully, I'm going to ask for forgiveness. Hopefully, you forgive, and we can restore. Those. That's why I love the Lord. Those things are only in our faith. That it's a requirement. What hurts
Mm-hmm.
is a person that claims to
Mm.
love the Lord that won't give you that,
Come on.
and that's
Mm.
hard. That's hard when we've shared Jesus, but I can't get the almost the respect of why you did what you did. That's when you're really grieving. Or
Mm.
we shared Jesus and you died and we didn't get to close anything. You know,
Right.
I saw you last and then I saw you in a casket. That's hard. That's hard. You know, a lot of funerals, the tears, they aren't because you're happy for that person all the time that they've gone on to be with the Lord. A lot of it is you didn't get to close something. And so I think grieving a person that's alive, if you can still try to get the clarity and the closure, I say fight for it as long as you can. Uh, if you owe them, give it. If you don't, and they ask for it, I think pride will have you waiting on them to give you a conversation that you didn't ask for because they should know better. And I had to grow out of that. And I would just tell people, hey, I love you, and this is why I don't talk to you. You know what you did, and you know that, but like I have to tell you, this
You
is why.
messy.
Yeah, this is
Right.
what this is what happened. Uh, and that's the Christ way. The reality is not everybody who says they love Christ actually knows him enough to keep his commandment. And then people who don't know him, they would never do it. And so that's a whole different aspect of grief. I don't want to go off the wall. Um, but I'm just I think the process, if you do it right, you'll be able to move forward because you'll be able to forgive. If you can grieve, you can make sense of it. And even for people who, if you were fired, if you even battling depression, I had to learn you have to forgive yourself for how you treated yourself when your mind wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Mm.
start after you forgive. This is what people don't tell you. After you make that statement, then you have to grieve who you could have been if everything had gone right.
Wow.
Who you could have blessed. You said, man, I would have been further. I would have been further. The relationships that were broken because of mental health. And that's what, like, we talk about the devil being a thief. If he can get your mind, he
Right.
will have you
Yes.
grieving everything you lose while he had everything you lost while he had control over it. And that's why you have to be very careful when the Bible says guard your heart and renew
It
your
renew
mind.
the spirit of your
You
mind.
have to it's a daily thing to
Yes, it
renew
is.
your mind, because if the devil ever gets it, you'll be grieving what you could have done, how productive you could have been. I used to say, man,
Right.
I would have had 3 books by now. Done. Traveled the world,
Mm.
preached here, done this.
It's not too
And
late.
it's not and see, but grief, the process of grief, you will settle it and then say, you know what? I can still do this. Because after you grieve, you'll learn how to express gratitude. And gratitude is, I lost a lot of days, but I have this day.
I got today.
You see what I'm saying? I lost
Yeah.
some people, but I have
Mhm.
this. I lost opportunities for money, but I ain't missed a meal. I My health isn't what it used to be. I don't go slamming the gym like I used to, but I can still walk. I can still, like, I had to learn how to grieve the person I lost in that season. And then gratitude says, how do you get them back? And so in one of those steps, it said, allow yourself a time. I would take it a bit further and say, allow yourself um, to grieve the time lost. That way you don't spend more time saying, man, right before COVID, I was going to do this. Right before mama died, this was my plan. Right before I got fired, I was going to do this. You know, and it's easier said, than done, or easier read than done. Whatever however you slice the pie. It's just being honest with yourself. Grief is it's a mirror. It's a mirror. I when I went to counseling, I think the first couple of sessions I was grieving. I think my counselor cried the first time, and I was over there sitting straight because I was so used to living in my truth. And she was like, if anybody else had lived that, they wouldn't be well either. From what you just said, if that's how they really, really felt, they wouldn't be well either. And I was like, man, that's okay. And then after it was over, I just went to bed and cried because it was like, man, I didn't realize it was that. You asked me a question and I answered it. And
Yeah.
that's when I started to say, okay, you got to make sense of it, because if you don't, you'll always be able to tell the story. And that's what he was saying about the protest. And in between protest, and I can't remember what the other one is, he was like, the grief is the missing piece. Oh, in between protest and moving on, he was like, it's grief.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember
Mhm.
trying to move on, but I didn't know the missing piece, because I could explain it, but I couldn't feel it because I was just numb to it at that time in my life. And that's what I'm saying. I think grief gives you clarity. It's really for you. God in his infinite wisdom gave us the ability to feel it and grieve it, I think, so we would understand other people. And
Right.
then you have compassion for the reason I could talk to you about a job like that, because I've been there. But if all my ducks was always in a row, I'd be like, they just lost a job. Like, I don't see what the big deal is. But as a black man, I know what it's like to be misjudged in the institutions, in the where we have to walk in and code switch and try. And so to wear your hair, people used to ask me, would you ever cut your beard for a job? I said no. I wear his hair, it grows. I don't know. Can I do the work? It's
Listen,
hair.
and I
It's
teach
just
these
hair.
kids.
It grows.
His hair grows.
And I wouldn't do it because when they made me, anybody that graduated from Terre Haute can tell you this, we couldn't get our diplomas. They wouldn't give us our diplomas. We couldn't even get the cap and gown if we wasn't like clean shaven. So the night I graduated, I ain't got nothing. I ain't got a mustache. And I was just like, I don't like that guy. Like, I don't like, I got a big head and I ain't got no hair. That don't really work for me. And so I was like, I would never do something just to get something from you. we have, and so what you did is commendable because we have to start. We don't have to try to fit in places, but equality, it should be what it is, equality. If there's not a rule for what you do to your hair, it should be a rule for black people. And so, but I've been, decoded the wrong way and misread. And if you're quiet, you're mean, or you're mad, or a lot of times I'm just thinking, or I got something going on. Sometimes I have stuff going on, but sometimes I'm just observing. It's not always
Right.
they don't understand as believers. Um, it's better to listen than to speak. Be slow to speak. So I don't walk in a room doing a lot of talking. But to some people, what's wrong? Why are you angry, man? So I understand. It just trials will equip you and give you room to have compassion. But if you don't ever grieve it, you think everything that happened to you, you'll start misjudging it and misdiagnosing it, like Job's friends. Like, what? Why did you sin? Who
Just
sinned?
saying.
What?
Right.
And it was the devil who had asked, and didn't ask. It was God who had offered because he was trying to prove himself, his holiness, that there are people in the earth that I don't care what you try, I'll prove to you that somebody will honor me. And
Right.
so you could have been chosen, you
Mm.
know, for that. And yeah, you have to lose. What Fantasia? Sometimes you got to lose. Sometimes you got to lose.
Talk to me.
I'm not
But
gonna
lo- but,
chime out because I was ready to.
but if the loss, if you don't find the the power of loss, you see what I'm saying? What is the power in loss? Because God loves us too much to just let us lose for no reason.
Right.
And so I think you have to learn how to
Mm.
articulate
Mm.
what happened, why. We don't just lose. We can lose if disobedience and things like that. But man is evil in nature. You see what I'm saying? that's
And
the
it's
word.
interesting you
Yeah.
say that though, because while you said that you can lose to disobedience, and you also talked about um you had to grieve the loss of the time that you lost because you were depressed. I had to grieve the loss of time, period, because I didn't use my time wisely
Right,
because I was disobedient.
right.
And I had to sit in the fact that when I was, as they say, out in the world, um, I
So we
neglected my
still we
children.
still all out in the world. We just not of the world.
Love the
But
world.
I'm saying,
We in there.
but folks be like, I was out in
But
that
that
world.
Right,
world,
right, right. Or
right?
they say this. I was living in that other world. We in the
Right.
same world.
It's in the
Same
other
I
world.
was out
world.
there in that other world. Not using this one.
Out in it. But
You was
just
in
truly,
sin.
I was of it, and strongly of the world. And in that time, I know, somebody tried to say, oh, well, no, you didn't neglect your kids. No, I did. And when I came to, and realized, man, while you were in the home, you didn't miss events and stuff
Mhm.
like that. You literally did put your sinful life
Right.
ahead of your children, and actually making those quality moments with them where I was hurt. Like I couldn't, you can't really see yourself sometimes, and you don't even realize how bad off you are until, your eyes are open and you realize, wow. And so when I realized how bad off I really was, then I went through a period of super strong guilt. And I was angry with myself. Then I looked at, like, I can't get this time back. So then I started to work like an overdrive, especially with my oldest one. And I had to really sit back and be like, look here, because as you said, even with you going through things, God can still allow you to see that you experienced that, but there's something that you can do with it.
Yeah.
And so, but I had to
Mhm.
go through that process of accepting the fact that you did lose this time and you can't get any of this time back. But the fact that you still have time, what are you going to do,
Right.
with the time that you do have? And so I just, found it interesting that you did say that you grieve the loss of time of the things that you could have been doing,
Oh yeah.
whereas
That was heavy on me. Even
I just need time, period.
when
Like,
when I was going through counseling and I was seeing like, okay, a little progress, and you think, well, what if I tried this sooner? Maybe I could have prevented that, or maybe I could have prevented.
Ooh,
You wrestle with yourself, but there are action steps because he's telling you like attachment and I all that's true. You need to admit that you loved and that you liked it and that it's gone. But I think some of the action steps is replacing it and not like replacing a person. I don't mean like that, but I mean in just when we talk about time, we talk about seasons. I remember I took bags to Goodwill I had clothes with the tag on them because I stopped going places. Uh, by COVID, when COVID started, I had already been in the house probably like close to a year. So
wow.
when everybody was like, "Oh, we quarantine," I'm like, "Welcome," because I've been here by choice.
Tell me on the
Funny,
I've
couch.
been here
Jesus.
by
He said,
choice,
welcome.
and
Have a
so by
seat.
like 2021 or two, I just started giving the clothes away because I was like, well, some of the stuff I bought in like 2018, 2019, like I ain't gonna wear it, can't fit it. Everybody gained weight during COVID, but you take stress and depression on there, boy, you're gonna stack it up because your body, the cortisol in your body, like it just get out of whack, and you can't, you control. You don't even have to be eating. You just can't. You have so much stress in your body being released into your bloodstream that your body is actually in a panic to save
I think
itself.
that's why I was so fat when I was working at Loud.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of times it's diet,
You
but
wasn't
you can
stressed the
have a
whole
good
time.
diet. You can have a good diet, but if you stress or can't sleep, it doesn't matter. Like everybody knows, I don't drink alcohol. I don't care how. I just don't. I never did. It never was my thing. But even going through everything, I didn't pick it up. Like it's not. I don't smoke anything like that. But alcoholics were probably in better shape than I was because of stress. And that's hard to say, but they probably were because once it releases the toxins in your bloodstream, you'll die faster than people who have anything else going on. That's the Bible says that a broken spirit, it dries up the bones. Like that's real. That's real. And so that's when I was like, okay, I gotta do something. And I remember the first time I went back to the gym and like I could lift everything that I always could. I was always very strong, but I hurt so bad because I wouldn't give myself the time to get used to the reps. I felt like just because I could pick it up, just do it
Pick it up.
and do it. And I was doing it, and I'm in there and I'm doing it. And that next day I couldn't get out the bed, and I was like, "Oh, I can't do that no more." But I didn't want to. I didn't want to look around and not be who I used to be, even in there, even amongst those guys, amongst like I could stand out, And I was like, "Oh, I can still do this." It's an ego thing,
Oh yeah.
and I was like, "No, you got to be fair. That if you haven't been treating yourself well, rehab, go in there, switch it, and actually give yourself the time." Grief comes in, it's everything, but it comes in a lot of different ways. That was one. I had to walk out that gym and say, "Ooh, I'm what they call old school now." you know, I had to walk out that gym and say, "Okay," but I still got it, but because I hadn't worked it, it was harder for me to recover. And I was
Mm.
like, "Okay, now I can't do that." So I had to think about that a different way. I gave away clothes because, and this is why I'm telling you this, grief, if you don't acknowledge who you used to be and then who you are now, you'll grieve that person to the point of trying to replace it with exactly what it was. So you'll beat yourself down and get back in them old clothes. give them away and just buy some more. And then as you work towards where you want to be, that shirt not hanging up, give it away. Give it away. Take pictures down. That's not your life no more. You should like
Right.
do whatever you have to do. Get a new a soundtrack. Play different songs. Just reinvent yourself during the process. And then when you're healthy enough to say, okay, can I revisit this? Can I go back here? Can I do this? But while you're in the funk, don't have them closing that closet so you can look at that closet every day and say, "Why I can't fit this shirt?" You see what I'm saying? Or throw away what you need to throw away, or box it up. If y'all break up, just box it up. Don't sit there and look at it. If there's hope of a return, box it up, and then y'all can unbox it when it's time. But if it's not, have a ceremony for it. Just box it up, and if you can use it, use it. If not, you're gonna have to do away with it because they're not coming back, and you're giving yourself what he said, this sense of hope that's not real.
Right.
So you have to get rid of it, and that's what a lot of people don't do. They grieve in thought, but they don't grieve in action. They know the theory of grief, but like you got to actually carry it out. Even I remember when, my grandmother passed, and I remember my mama saying we was heading to the exit, and she was like, "Oh, I got to pass that nursing home, but I don't have to go in." And it was something. I was like, I thought you would be glad that you didn't have to go, because she went every day. But in grief, it was like, if you need to drive by there, just drive by there. Do we need to get out and go see the nurses? Like, you telling her to just, don't take that route, or just, you don't have to be happy. You don't have to go back. That's not what you should do. Grieving, drive by, go to the parking lot and say, "Hey, I'm thankful for the time that you were here, and I understand I don't have to come back. But I needed to sit right here today," and then slowly get out of it. Because in theory, it's not going to work, but in action, sometimes you got to go to that parking lot and sit there, and then thank God. In all things, give thanks. So just say, "Hey, Lord, I'm able that. I'm glad I was able to have a mother, a grandmother. I'm thankful that I was able to share time, to come up here every day. Yes. My job, we had the ability to take off, and anything you can be thankful. Just find the gratitude in it as you sit in that parking lot. Thankful for the life that they live, that they were able to see my kids, grandkids, and great grands. That's not everybody's story. Right. That's not everybody's story. My mother may never see my kids. That's not everybody's story. So for my grandmother to see great grands, that's a big deal. She was at every graduation. I had high school and 2 college graduations. That's major to have somebody there, because some people I graduated with ain't nobody in the stands for them. So you're standing on these people's shoulders. So you have to go in that parking lot and you have to think about all of that, and then say, "I'm just thankful that God, you gave that to me." And then you drive off, and you do that as many times as you have to do that. And then one day you'll realize we just driving by there. We don't even say nothing no more. For a while, that wasn't a thing. But now we can drive by there, and you might think it, or you might say something. But a lot of times we pass it. She don't say anything. And I was like, it's not that you're over it, but you have a little more clarity. Yeah. And that's, to me, that's what grief is. Like, you got to take the steps. It don't make you weak. It don't make it don't, like, just be real about it. Be fair about it. And then take those steps. Don't try to outpray grief. That ain't gonna work. Because there could be something that God is trying to teach you, but you have to lament. And we rush over that.
We do, because I think, because we
society
talk about
though.
That. Yeah,
ain't no lamentation.
But that's societal, because how many days you get for when you lose a loved one? They give you 3 days. 3. My mama died, and you giving me 3 days.
3. That's crazy. And we need to have laws that push against that. Just like mental health.
Or I have to use my personal days. I have to use my personal days if I'm going to need more time outside of the 3 days that you're giving me. But society pushes you to get over it. because you get 3 days.
Right.
I don't care. If I don't care. I mean,
Because
I
But
don't
they
you
care.
know, during COVID, they did some positions
so,
did
some companies
allow
progress.
for some mental health days.
Yeah.
But it's like now that we feel like COVID is gone, a lot of the things that they were giving, they're not giving anymore, as if the residual effects are gone, or as if, well, we realized that mental health was a thing, but it's not anymore. No, it's always been a thing,
But
and
they
it's
didn't
still a
progress.
thing.
It still
They
is.
didn't progress like you really think. They just didn't
No,
have
they haven't.
they didn't have the leverage. And so when someone doesn't have leverage, they have to yield to your demand. The people run anything. If all y'all teachers just walk out that school, they
I
got to
keep
hear
saying
everything you
that.
say.
I keep
They have to hear
saying that.
everything you say. We're
The same way they
trained.
doing with the writers.
Yeah, the writer strike. Ain't no TV shows coming out because you have to hear what somebody's saying when you don't have the leverage. As long as there's one or two teachers leaving, okay, cool. That don't mean it. But if everybody is, that's why unity is powerful.
State of
There is
Texas.
Yes,
nothing
Great
greater
war.
than the number one. You see what I'm saying? Divide one up.
absolutely.
You can't. So there's nothing powerful than one.
Mm.
That's why when you marry, you become one. But I don't want to go off on that. But they didn't have the leverage because of COVID. When people are dying or people are in a
Mhm.
panic, and it's on every level, COVID, it didn't care who it touched. You could have $1 billion, or you could have 2 dimes and a nickel. It was the same. And so
You got
because it's a
everybody.
pandemic and there's this pandemonium around it, what people end up begging you because everybody's in a fear, and so we're losing money, but we're losing workers. Um, okay, I'll give you. What do you need? What do you
Mhm.
actually need to come in here? Because
Right.
if this production goes down anymore, we're out of business, and then that's going to affect. So they're going to
It's still
listen to
going
you.
on. These people
They're going
working
to
in so
listen
many of
to
these
you.
places.
It was the leverage. They still don't really care about mental health. They still
No.
don't care about parents, new parents on maternity and paternity leaves. They don't care about that.
Oh,
They
never
don't care
did.
if a daddy can stay with the child. That's just as important because the mother needs him. So
Right.
And
they
do.
trained you not to even be in the home together. So paternity leave is going to be maternity leave is going to be greater than paternity. Like y'all don't need to be together. He,
Yep.
especially if you had a C-section, he got to be looking after you. So
True.
they don't always think about that though. They expect you to come right back, or you can get some time, but not as it's just it's a cold world. But I think we can make strides and push for certain things. We just got to kind of come together on stuff a little more. But grief is gonna always it ain't gonna never be up to the collective or to the community. The individual has to grieve no matter the situation. So I think grief is non-negotiable, and it will give you a picture of your health, your level of health, whether it's poor or you're in good health. That's the
Right.
main question. If you're just going to
Mm.
start dating again, I think it's nothing wrong with asking that question. When was your last relationship? And if they say
Absolutely not.
4 months ago, like you need to ask, what did you grieve? How long were y'all together? Things like that. Don't ask them whose fault it is because everybody has their own stories.
They
There, if
do.
you're the
I'm
bit,
sorry. Did you
unless you can
grieve?
talk to the other person,
I think
they're
you.
gonna tell you what they want you to hear. But just say, "Did you grieve?" and you'll get your answer. Actually, sometimes you can see their fault by just how dismissed they are from it. Sometimes you can
Grieve.
you
What
can
you
say,
mean?
"Yeah,"
Right.
because
And they'll probably say, what you
Did you
mean
grieve
by
after this
grief?
relationship
Because
yet?
they don't
you can
equate
listen. If you
that
pose the
to
right questions, you can get the right answers, and they don't even know you're doing that work on them. They don't even know.
Mm.
Or if they can rattle off every detail about it and it's a pains, then you'll know you got two options. You can either get into this and understand that you might be you might get a
Some
little
baggage.
sunshine residue on you, like, or you can say, "Hey, I don't think I'm ready to, you know, pursue you." You can just tell them that. You don't have to make it their fault and say, "Yeah, you ain't ready to date me. You ain't ready to be with me. I don't think you healed. What you can say is, I wish you the best. I
It's
just
not
don't
you.
think.
It's me.
Yes, because they're not gonna take that. But you can say, I wish you the best. I just don't think this is something I'm willing to do. You know, if y'all was friends or something like that, then you can kind of give them that real and say, and if they ask, well, is it something I did? If you want to do
You
that,
feel
okay.
free.
But I've
Something
learned
you
that
didn't do.
I think honesty is always the best policy, but I think um, timed honesty is even better. So I I owe you honesty, but I don't have to give you it in full. The honest thing was I'm not ready to pursue you. If you want the full honesty, I need to determine if you can handle that. You see what I'm saying? So honesty is the best policy, but if you want that hard, everybody can handle hard truth. Give them truth, but hard truth is reserved for mature people. So ask yourself, is this person mature enough to handle hard truth? And that's and grieving taught me that. Grieving will teach you how to deal with other people because you learned how to deal with yourself. Because there were some hard truths I couldn't face myself with. But once I learned how to give myself the hard truth, I found it easier to give other people the hard truth, and I'll be shocked when they didn't want it. And I'll be
But he
like, boy,
do.
y'all love me. Y'all always say I'm so real and so this, and then now you want me to be quiet. But it was
But
just an
even grief.
outpouring. It was outpouring of what was in me. So when I learned to give myself hard, harsh truths, even if it made me feel bad or it put me in a funk that day and I was down about it, I owed myself the truth. And I gave it. And so it shows how well you love yourself. And so I would try to love people with that love. And without asking the question, are they mature enough to receive this kind of love? Because
You
you
don't be
can't.
asking me.
What?
He just give
Y'all,
it to you.
when he
He just
say
gave
he
it to
gives the
you.
hard truth, he definitely gives the hard truth. And sometimes I know I done something, and I know the last time we had a conversation, I had to turn around and say, "Oh, I sure hate to tell you this, but," and he never says like, "Well, I told you so,"
Oh,
but he does give, the hard truth, and I appreciate that. But I don't know if he gives me the hard truth because I'm mature enough or he just loves me so much. I don't know which one it is, but I always do appreciate his hard truth. But it's always in a loving way. And I think too, I know that he definitely wants to see me succeed. He has my best interest at heart. So I never take an offense to it. I just I can't stand that he's so wise. And
well,
so when I
I
do
said you don't ask the person if they're mature enough. You ask yourself. So if
but that's what I'm saying. I don't know. Did you
you
just
said you never asked me, I'm not gonna. I don't ask anybody. I ask myself, are they
Should I
mature
say
enough?
that?
And you look at the fruit of repentance or the fruit of changed behavior. So if I tell you something one time and you can take it and you can kind of change it, it leaves room, for me to do it again.
Yeah.
But if you come out of a bag and we're not gonna talk for 2 weeks or
come
three,
out of a bag?
you know how like sometimes that stuff can go. I have to tell myself, oh, they wasn't ready for that. It don't make them less than. It just means you can't do that. You got to, okay. So now I got to go about this a different way. I might just ask that person more questions next time instead of just telling them everything. I might just, how you feel about that? Or if that went another way, what you do? I just rephrase my questions. Hard truth is, you can't just cut them like that and wipe the blood because it's a hard truth. You
And
cut
that's what he be doing.
you
At
cut
least
them.
he wiped the blood, boo. At least he
You
wiped
wipe.
the
Well,
blood
I
from
think
you.
I think a good physician will always pat you up,
No, of course.
They
but
better, unless
but
they was
they
lied to.
but they had to cut and separate or repair something so you can function. Anytime you've had surgery, it's about being functional. something isn't functioning the way it is, so they go have a surgery. And then they repair it or restore it so you can function. You see what I'm saying? So it's just even down to God putting Adam to sleep and there being a cutting, he functioned better after Eve. You function better in partnership.
Right.
So it's like, but he put him to sleep first. He didn't cut him wide awake. You know what I'm saying? It's just knowing what to do and what somebody can handle. Even down to when God was about to cut them, he asked Adam where he was and not Eve.
Right.
Because her taking that fruit showed a spiritual immaturity. And at that time, she wouldn't have been ready. But even though Adam ate of that tree too, he knew and understood that I can talk with him versus talking to her in this moment. And he does all of us like that. It's not that he was a man and she was a woman. It's who got the order first. Their relationship was first. And I talk about this when I teach on dating. The relationship that you have with the father is separate and apart from what you have with a partner. And so he knew before I put you to sleep and made her, we had communication. So I know your level of maturity. You don't read that the three had communication. And so he was mature enough to say, if this happened, did you know about it? Where are you? Why haven't you come to me? Why haven't you come to me yet? Do you think I can't give you another partner? Do you think, are you so in love with flesh that you don't think I can reproduce that again? Have you chosen that over me? I want to know where we stand. And that's, I don't want that to be, too far left on grief, but a good a person that loves you enough to help you grieve, sometimes they will give you a hard truth. And you'll have to check and see if you're the true giver. What state of grief is this person in? Can I give them this? You have to watch, even when somebody dies, you have to watch what they're in a better place. Not right now.
Right.
You wouldn't want y'all back here crying.
Some people you can tell it to, and then others you can't.
Some you can't,
those
but
who are in the right spot, you
timed
can tell them
truth.
that. Yeah.
Timed
Time
truth is better. Timed honesty is better than honesty. So some people you can tell that to, but not while they at the hospital and they about to take her to the funeral. Like, you can't say it right then. That conversation might come later.
Right.
But some people, they'll never take that. They'll never take that truth. And from a personal just experience of grieving families and things, just being around, especially if you're a preacher, like, please never say that. Families never want to hear that. They never want to hear it. They never want that. So I hope, while you may mean well, I haven't had a family that wanted to hear that. No. What they want you to do is acknowledge that you lost somebody you love. And while God is handling it in the spiritual and the natural, we're here for you. So if you want to cry, cry on me. You want to eat, I'll bring the food. You want to vent about what they did while they was alive, I'm listening. You want to, talk about how bad they was to you, how they treated you. We are in the flesh, and we are supposed to be giving support in that. I'm gonna let God handle all of the spiritual things, and I know we say all the right things at the funerals, but really, they just want somebody. Job's friends, the best thing they could have done was night one when they just sat and didn't say anything.
Ain't say nothing.
That talking is what killed.
You want to feast your plate or something? You want to eat? You hungry?
Right. But yeah, I never ask a person, are they mature? Because everybody's mature if you ask them. I think just use your eyes and ears and use fruit. Say, how do they normally handle conflict? How do they handle criticism? And it will let you know where you stand with them. But if they are grieving, and then you can have compassion on it. Like, yeah, you was going off, but I understand it. I understand that that's where you are right now. So it's good to grieve because it will help you give compassion to other people's situations.
And all things
But
working for the good for those
amen.
who love the Lord. So the things that we grieve and the things that we go through in grief brings
Come
about
on
a
here.
change. It brings about a change. And you take that change, what you do with it, you know, what you do with that change. How you use that change to move forward, or hopefully not to become stagnant. But um, in most cases, it often proves to be, and maybe not, not instantly, but works out for your good. One, because you
Right.
have an understanding of that which you went through and can have compassion for others. Most of the time, that is a big part of it. It'll take you through
Right.
something, you'll be able to have some compassion for somebody else. But even, mostly through the grief, working for your good,
But I don't
working for
even think
your
you
good.
were going, too far to the left on group when you said like, you don't think that I can give you something better. Because I mean, even if we look at a job, we can grieve a job so hard. I really, really wanted that. And it's
Mm,
possible that you were relying so much on this job that this job became your God, your Lord. It became the provider. So you needed
mm,
to lose this job because it was what you were relying on, and you had lost your reliability on God. Even in, relationships, sometimes we want to hold on to people so much so that they have become who we rely on. And I do think that there are, times when God is like, now you see them as your savior, you see
Using
them
me.
as your provider. But I mean, if you look at Job, that wasn't
Right.
Job's situation, but he lost everything and he got even better than what he had before. So I think when you do look at certain situations in that grieving process, you have to be careful to not grieve so hard that you have lost your faith that I can't get anything better. I'll never get another relationship. Like you said, you don't think that I can give you another spouse, or maybe you never get another spouse, but I can still feel that void with other people, or things. You don't think that I can give you another job, or people who lose children. That's a
Mm,
tough one right there. But I can give you more kids. You won't get that one. But I can give you more. So I do think that even in saying uh not to go down there, I think we do have to go down that at the proper time, of course, because if I'm grieving, I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't hear that right now. I can't see that right now. But when you are talking to believers and it looks like, okay, you have been grieving a while, do we need to talk about that? Do we need to look at that? Because some people have lost their faith, or their trust in God, to the point where some people, they lose something so heavy, I don't even believe God exists anymore. And so I
mm,
think that is a part where at the proper time you
mm,
might have to address with somebody, have you lost?
Well, a lot of
You know,
times they're not. A lot of times they're not grieving. They're protesting. You just feel it. They're not doing the action steps. Grief acknowledges that it is gone, and it
right.
it takes you from why it's gone to just the fact that it's gone, and here are my options going forward, or they're gone, or they're deceased, or the opportunity is missed. And that's the part in the church we don't always talk about, grieving the decisions that God makes on our behalf that we disagree with.
we don't talk about that.
That's a
mm.
different kind of grief. When
Different.
it's really when a man makes his plans and the Lord directs his path.
Right.
And sometimes we don't agree with when that path and those plans don't add up or align.
They don't.
God, God, why you didn't want what I wanted? That's a different kind of
Right.
grief. That's a
Whole
different
lot
kind.
of different
That's
kinds of
that
grief.
Naomi grief. Call me Mara because I don't have any. I didn't plan for my husband and my sons to die,
Right.
and we going back.
Right.
That's a different kind of grief, you know. So she claimed that she was bitter because I can't accept God's decisions, and I found it that when we can't accept God's decisions or God's decisions that He makes, it's often harder for us to accept our partners and peers' decisions that they make because we have a tie to our plan and how we wanted it to go. And so if you learn to do it with God, it'll be easier for you to do it with other people. If you
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, if God can choose this on my behalf and I didn't want it, but I took it, you can walk too. And while I may not like it and I'm gonna feel it, I'm gonna tell myself that I must accept this. And then you can start grieving when you say that.
It's good.
I like it. I like it. So there we have it, folks. Like this grief thing is major. And the truth of the matter is, as long as you keep living, you're gonna lose something. But we can't get stuck and caught up in it to the point where we can't, move forward because we don't want to just life just starts moving and we're not able to move forward because we're not actually going through the process of
Stuck in it.
grieving. It looks different, for different people. I don't think that we can't put people on a time schedule. We like to do that. But the main thing that we want you to take away from this is that you must grieve. You must. And, stay away from folks who don't want to let you grieve. Because you have to do that in order to be able to move beyond the boundaries. And that's the
Forward.
goal. Yes, that is the goal of
My
Mhm.
back
um
is grieving.
And that,
Among,
ladies and gentlemen, is
among
the end
other
of
things.
the episode.
I can't stand him.
My back grieving.
Among other
So that we
things.
don't
My
continue to
stomach
let
grieving too.
his
somebody,
back or
somebody
his
play the
stomach
theme
grieve.
music.
Yeah, my back and stomach is grieving. And so
We are
uh
going to go ahead and leave you tonight. But please know that we will be back for another episode of the book chapter and Converse podcast where we want to help you move beyond the boundaries. So until next time.